Well, I remember the '90s reading about it anyway. And I guess you could say I was involved in the latter days of it in the early 2000s. That's why I remember there was a time when the left was anti-globalization and in some ways taking its lead from the global south, from the Zapatistas who had a direct militant response to NAFTA. Although, of course, the mainstream labor unions had also opposed NAFTA. And there was a right wing component too, with Pat Buchanan and the paleo conservatives. And Pat Buchanan was actually invited to speak at the WTO Seattle protest, a very controversial invite by the AFL CIO. But that was pushed back on very aggressively by the far left. And you started to have the development, I think, around that time of this sort of proto Antifa element or school of thought, really, that all right populists were fascists and we had quarantined ourselves from their
Mhm,
influence rather than
mhm.
attempt to raise their awareness, which is sort of foreshadowing.
The Cootie approach to mobilization and
Yeah, yeah. Which is weird because at the same time, anarchists would talk about political contagion, like
Oh,
us,
okay.
us spreading our cooties, basically,
Yeah.
like political contagion, social contagion, but you're at the same time constantly worried about catching the contagion of the right wingers if you associate with them in any way. And it was exacerbated post 9/11, where the majority of the people turned to the right because they were on a war footing, a xenophobic state of mind, on the
Mhm,
defensive, constantly worried about being attacked by Arabs or Muslims or whatever. All this hysteria, which was whipped up both by mainstream liberals as well as conservatives, but
mhm.
was associated with conservatives, obviously. The Bush Cheney movement, I guess you could call it. And so the anti-war movements, the left that evolved out of that, tend to go in a more polarized anti-American direction. And then after that comes the financial crisis.